And welcome to another episode of Hazardous Verbal Waste. I'm your host, Shiro Chan. Today is Saturday, December 14th, 2019. Got a lot of really cool stuff going on this week, including my review of Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. So, without further ado, let's get right down to it, shall we? In Yu-Gi-Oh! News, a new FTK has hit the streets, and it is a doozy. The deck is built around the 6 Samurai monsters, and with the addition of their new Link monster, the 6 Samurai FTK is pretty consistent. It pretty much is able to go off no matter what your opening hand is, as long as you have 2 6 Samurai monsters and Gateway in your hand. It's pretty nasty. I watched a video of it. I will include a link of the video in the show notes so that you guys can go check it out yourself. The guy that's demonstrating the deck is a little bit of a fast talker, but when you get past that and you watch him play the deck, it's pretty impressive. He's able to get it off in one turn. And it's basically a continuous loop of sacrifice 2 monsters with Amazonas Archer, special summon 2 more monsters with the first 2 monsters effects, then tribute those monsters for Amazonas Archer's effect, then get 2 more monsters back on the field, and it just over and over and over again, and it is until your opponent is out of life points. Personally, I would not want to go up against this deck unless your deck is just nothing but hand traps or you go first. You're not going to be able to do anything about this. I plan on going to the regionals in Seattle on the 21st. I'm praying that I do not see a single 6 Sam FTK deck. Otherwise, yeah, it's going to be a big waste of my time. Unfortunately, there's not much else in Yu-Gi-Oh! News this week. I was really hoping for something. I know a lot of people are really anxious to see what the next ban list is going to look like. I haven't played enough competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Or to really say how the meta is doing currently. I'm hoping to get an idea of that on next Saturday. But I'm hoping that the new list should take care of this 6 Sam problem pretty quickly. Other than that, like I said, not much else in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Universe this week, so on to the next segment. In Pokemon news, Pokemon Company given legal permission to pursue Sword and Shield leakers. The Pokemon Company has been diligently searching for the individuals behind the Pokemon Sword and Shield leaks prior to its official release. Now they've been given permission to pursue the individuals in question to the full extent of the law. According to a report from Forbes via Nintendo Everything, the Pokemon Company has begun a lawsuit against the individuals and is planning on issuing subpoenas against Discord and 4chan that would force them to come forward with information regarding the users behind the leaks. And while the individuals in question have yet to be identified, Forbes notes that the Pokemon Company has identified 4 Discord users, though after it hired outside forensic experts to hunt down the leakers. One is believed to be the person who supplied the images to the other defendants who posted or helped post the photos online. The leaks began a couple of weeks prior to Pokemon Sword and Shield's release, with images circulating around the internet showcasing unreleased images of Pokemon, including new Gigantamax forms taken directly from the official strategy guide. Now, the Pokemon Company's lawyers claim that the leaks had caused irreparable injury to Pokemon and that the company is entitled to damages in an amount to be proven at trial. Now, according to the legal document detailing the case, 18 images were leaked from the strategy guide and shared in Discord before being circulated to 4chan, Reddit, and eventually the rest of the internet. In all, the Pokemon Company identified over 300 URLs on dozens of platforms that link to websites containing the leaked strategy guide pictures. It also mentions that leaks are responsible for reducing the fan interest and engagement the Pokemon Company and its partners generate by keeping key elements of the game secret, which players would eventually obtain by purchasing the games and said strategy guide. Now, the Pokemon Company are seeking financial reimbursement from the individuals responsible for all losses caused by their wrongful conduct, as well as any legal punishment that the court deems appropriate. It's very clear that the Pokemon Company and Nintendo take these actions very seriously, with Nintendo recently pursuing websites uploading illegal ROMs of their games. Now, while one might argue whether or not these leaks affected sales of Pokemon Sword and Shield or the subsequent strategy guide, the Pokemon Company want to make an example out of those who distribute information without their consent at the very least. For more on Pokemon Sword and Shield, I will be bringing you more information as I am able to obtain it in future episodes. And that's pretty much all we have for Pokemon news this week. On to the next segment. In Magic the Gathering news, a Magic the Gathering MMO is on the way. The world of Magic the Gathering is being adapted into a massively multiplayer action role-playing game called Magic Legends. It's being developed by the team behind the free-to-play Neverwinter. Now, the announcement was made during the Game Awards and included a CGI trailer. Fans will have the opportunity to immerse themselves in the acclaimed fictional multiverse of Magic the Gathering as a powerful spell-wielding planeswalker of their own creation when Magic Legends begins beta testing in 2020. Now, like Dungeons & Dragons, Magic is experiencing a major renaissance. Now, leading the way is a resurgence in the traditional tabletop card game, as well as its brand new free-to-play online version. Produced in-house by publishers Wizards of the Coast, Magic the Gathering Arena also announced its next set of cards during the Game Awards. But Magic is also heading to Netflix as an animated series. Now, that production will be headed up by none other than Joe and Anthony Russo, directors of Avengers Endgame. Now, that's really, really cool news for any Magic fan out there. If you want to see more, you can head over to Polygon. I believe they do have a trailer for the new MMO available. As for the Netflix series, I don't have any information available at this time. I will do a little bit more research, and I'll make sure to have a really awesome segment for you next week regarding that animated series. Since this is pretty much all I have for Magic the Gathering news this week, on to the next segment. In movie news, this past week, on Tuesday, December 10th, 2019, I got to see Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. In addition to the movie, I also got to see a live Q&A with Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith. Or, more precisely, a live Q&A with Kevin Smith, and Jay just happened to be standing there. The movie was great. It was a little confusing. Frankly, I would have rather just seen it in a regular movie theater instead of paying for $15 a ticket instead of paying $50 a ticket for the Q&A. Just because the movie, it was kind of hard to hear the dialogue at times because of the audience, and frankly, made it really hard to follow the plot, which is kind of hard to follow to begin with. Basically, the whole movie is nothing more than seeing every single character Kevin has ever used in a movie, ever. Every actor that he's ever put into a movie, almost every actor that he's ever put into a movie, with the glaring exceptions of George Carlin and Stan Lee, because those two have passed away, sadly. But just about everybody else was there. Frankly, it was hard to watch. He puts his own kid, he puts Jason's kid in there. So, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's worth watching. It's worth buying. Heck, I even pre-ordered it through Google Play. So I definitely will own this movie. I just wish that it could have been a little bit better. But that's pretty much all I can really say on the movie without actually getting into spoiler territory. The Q&A itself was really disappointing. In past Q&As, when doing these road shows with movies that he's done, Kevin would usually record a podcast, as record the Q&A and record almost the entire viewing of the movie as a podcast, usually by saying, okay, we're going to watch the movie now, and then cutting to everybody laughing at the end credits. This time around, there was no podcast. It was really disappointing for somebody who's been listening to his podcast since Smodcastle almost. And I was kind of hoping that the podcast would do it. And he didn't do a podcast. Because there was no podcast, there were no microphones for the Q&A. And so it was basically just, him and Jason pointing around, choosing people. It really ended up being only 4 people, or 4 questions asked of 3 people. One guy got to ask 2 questions because he was being loud and obnoxious. And it appears that when doing the popcorn style, as Kevin put it, of Q&A, basically, the more loud and obnoxious and visually striking you are, the more likely you are to get called upon to ask a question. I was really disappointed in this because I had a really good question for Jason. I also wanted to plug my podcast, and with that particular audience, it really wouldn't have mattered because most of that audience really wasn't my target audience to begin with. Or maybe they were. I don't know. I'm just saying that it was a small audience, and my goal would have been to plug my podcast, my show here, Hazardous Verbal Waste, on Kevin's podcast, thus expanding my very small audience, though I do appreciate all of you, to a wider audience. And I didn't get a chance to do that. And so that was really disappointing to me. Also was disappointing was the fact that I know Kevin's habits from listening to his podcast, from watching his live streams on Facebook. I know what he likes to eat. I know where he likes to eat. I even found a veggie grill location not more than a mile from the theater. And I even invited him on several social media platforms to come to lunch. I was going to pay for his lunch, and he didn't show up. And so I was really disappointed that he didn't show up for a free lunch. I mean, I know this sounds kind of whiny, and I really hate doing this and calling somebody out like this, but dude, Kevin, when somebody invites you to lunch, have the decency to show up, or at least respond with a sorry, I'm too busy. Can I get a rain check? I didn't even get a response to my invitation. So I'm really disappointed in that. I'm really disappointed in you, Kevin, if you're even listening. I know you're probably not, but you never know. Anyway, that's my review of both Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. Definitely worth seeing when it hits theaters or when it becomes available next month. I believe January 20th it becomes available on digital download. As far as the Q&As, personally, if I had a choice, if I would have known what kind of Q&A it was really going to be, I would have skipped the live show, and gone to the theater last month, back in October when it first aired. I would not have wasted $100 on 2 tickets to see the live show. Just wasn't worth it. So definitely worth seeing the movie. Definitely not worth the $100 or $50 a ticket to see the live show. All right. That's pretty much all I have for movie news this week. On to the next segment. In gaming news, the Xbox Series X has one major advantage over the PS5: the past. Microsoft hasn't exactly been shy about its upcoming successor to Xbox One. From an early announcement at E3 2018 that a new console was in development to a partial reveal at this year's show, players have known the next generation of gaming was inbound for a while. Now, that knowledge made the full reveal of Xbox Series X at the Game Awards perhaps a little anticlimactic. After all, when someone does exactly what they've said they'll do, it's no great surprise. Now, what was unexpected, though, was the focus on backwards compatibility, with plans for Xbox Series X to be capable of playing games dating back to the original Xbox that launched in 2001. Now, again, Microsoft has previously discussed this to an extent and scaled back its Xbox One backwards compatibility program this summer to work on bringing the functionality to the then codenamed Project Scarlet. And what is striking, though, is just how deeply this all-powerful new console is relying on the past, and that could be a deciding factor in determining the next-gen console wars. In a blog post, Microsoft's head of Xbox, Phil Spencer, says, quote, "Xbox Series X will be our fastest, most powerful console ever and set a new bar for performance, speed, and compatibility, allowing you to bring your gaming legacy, thousands of games from 3 generations and more, forward with you." Well, that Microsoft is leaning so hard on the Xbox Series X's ability to play games dating back decades, with the new hardware still a year off from release, is telling. It shows that Microsoft recognizes that Xbox is now a legacy brand, with a generation of gamers having grown up around its consoles. Now, many of those players will be collectors too, or at least still have a hefty amount of older games lining their shelves that they may want to return to. By establishing early on that you'll be able to play your Xbox, Xbox 360, and Xbox One games on the next Xbox, Microsoft keeps them on board. It also shows Microsoft may have learned lessons in its main competitor Sony seems to have forgotten. When the PlayStation 2 first launched, backwards compatibility with original PlayStation titles was critical to its success. On day one, players had a library of games they could continue to play while the new generation built its own portfolio. When the PlayStation 3 debuted, though, this factor started to diminish. Although the earliest PS3 units could play PS2 games, the functionality was soon dropped, one of several reasons the PS3 struggled to match its predecessor. PS4 abandoned backwards compatibility entirely, although by making the system easier for developers to create for, it managed to win back players with a software suite that rapidly expanded from the console's launch. Yet still, PlayStation-centric gamers who grew up with the brand have to keep 3 or even 4 generations of hardware on hand if they want to return to old favorites. For Xbox Series X, players will be able to keep their entire entertainment center smart with a single unit that will play an original Xbox game as easily as it will the latest release. It's a compelling pitch. Of course, Sony may be reawakening to the demand to retain access to older titles. In the exclusive reveal of the upcoming PlayStation 5 with Wired US, lead system architect Mark Cerny revealed it too will have backwards compatibility, though it seems at the moment only for PS4 titles, because the PS5 is partly based on PS4 architecture. Rumors persist that the PS5 will also offer multiple generations of backwards compatibility, but for now, that's all they are, rumors. What's currently concrete is that PS5 will play 2 consoles worth of games. Xbox Series X will play 4. Again, a persuading argument for Microsoft to make to potential consumers. What's less clear is exactly how this backwards compatibility will be delivered, or if it will extend to every game in the console family's back catalog. On Xbox One, compatibility has been added on a per-game basis, with software patches and emulation allowing playback of older discs. Now, that could continue for Series X, meaning the volume of titles playable day one may not be quite so voluminous. On the flip side, when Microsoft has added compatibility for older titles on Xbox One, customers find any digital games they bought on Xbox 360 that have received the treatment immediately appear in their download libraries. For example, I had several Xbox 360 games that were instantly transferred over to my Xbox One when I first booted it up. Now imagine turning your Series X on day one and finding dozens of titles sitting there ready to play. It's a rather wonderful thought. Now, this buy once, own forever approach also allows Microsoft to aim at the recently launched game streaming service Stadia. Now, Google's offering is struggling to build a library, and so far what's there are largely older games many players will have played elsewhere. Now, Stadia is also a cloud service utterly dependent on an internet connection. Now, if Microsoft is canny, it will capitalize on this and strongly pitch the potential alignment between Series X and Project X Cloud, Microsoft's own game streaming platform. Now, the result could be the best of both worlds, with your personal software library playable anywhere online through the cloud when you're on the move or offline at home on Series X. Now, perhaps best of all for retro gamers is Microsoft retaining a disk drive. While the monolithic design of Xbox Series X is certainly unorthodox, essentially a PC tower, which is fundamentally what most Xbox consoles have been in terms of internal hardware, but now it looks the part, the ability to continue playing physical media further opens the doors to a massive library for players on the day of release. It even dodges some of the problems with digital distribution, where rights issues can see titles disappearing from online storefronts on occasion. Now, if you still have a physical disc, the game is yours. It's almost ironic that the Series X is such a powerful console, purportedly 4 times as powerful as Xbox One X, capable of 4K visuals in 60 frames per second, potential for 8K and 120 frames per second, and packs in ray tracing as standard. And yet, in terms of reaching players, Microsoft's biggest ace for the next Xbox is in remembering all the ones it replaces. So, if you're looking to get a new console next year, you might want to consider the Xbox Series X. I certainly will be looking at picking one up myself. That's pretty much all we have for this week. On to the final thoughts. Before we get to the final thoughts, a quick word from some other shows you might find entertaining.
Hey, I'm Chen.
And I'm James.
We're from A Bloody Mess Podcast, the badly researched true crime podcast.
We straddle the boundaries between documentary and comedy, and our aim is to leave you laughing and thinking, wow, I didn't know that.
So once you're done with this podcast, add us to your download lists and give us a go. Have a nice day.
Bye.
There's been a murder of podcast.
Hello! Do you listen to podcasts? Did you seriously just give me that look? I knew you listened to podcasts, but do you listen to the Bare Naked Ladies? Wait, don't hit fast forward. Yes, there's a band out there called Bare Naked Ladies. They are quirky, fun, comedic, and excellent musicians. If you love alternative 90s music with a little jazz, rap, and country mixed in at different times, then you've got to try this band out. And we will lead you through a journey of getting to love this band. We have 3 or 4 people with different levels of bare naked experience We have Aaron, who's our music expert that breaks down each song. We will try to be informative, but also, we're all friends, so we like to have as much fun as possible. If you are a moderate fan of BNL, then you'll find new experiences and information. If you're a BNL fanatic like me, then I bet you too will find a song that is a deep dive that you never knew of. We sometimes have guests after the first letter. Oh, did I not mention that? We are Bare Naked ABCs, and the ABCs represents that we discuss the songs alphabetically. So come try us out on all platforms where podcasts are downloaded. Bare Naked ABCs. And no, we are not nude during the recordings.
Bare naked. Bare naked. Bare naked. ABCs.
Hello, future listeners. We are Historical AF. I'm Ashley.
I'm Keena.
And I'm Natalie.
We are two librarians and a historian bringing the funny, weird, spooky, and morbid historical nuggets you never knew you needed in your ear holes every Sunday.
And once a month, we bring you extra AF episodes full of your stories and history in the news.
And we do this while hitting the giggle water and gracing the world with our foul mouths and wit.
So if you love to laugh and you like history, true crime, and the paranormal, then we are the podcast for you, and your girls can't wait for you to join us.
You can find us on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. For a full list of ways to listen, go to historicalafpodcast.wordpress.com. And while you're there, you can check out the photos that accompany each episode.
Yeah, bye. We'll see you soon. I don't know. That'll probably scare them away.
Yeah.
Probably.
Come to us.
Come to the dark side. We have vodka.
And
Yeah.
cookies.
Hell yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Well, here we are at the end of yet another episode of Hazardous Verbal Waste. I hope you've been entertained and informed. If you have any comments, suggestions, or concerns regarding this episode, there are several ways that you can contact the show. You can email me. The email is hazardousverbal@gmail.com. You can go to the website. The website is hazardousverbal.com. And there you can go to the contact page, which will have all the social media links, as well as a contact form you can fill out so that you can get your message to the show. You can also leave a voicemail message. The Skype ID is Ichimoto1. I will be updating that soon so that it actually reflects the show name. But if you leave a voicemail message through Skype, you can hear your voicemail message played on a future episode. Also, any pertinent messages that you send via other ways will also be read on the show. So I hope to hear from you soon. Anyway, like I said in the movie news segment, I did get to see Jay and Silent Bob Reboot this past week. I also pre-ordered it through Google. I also purchased through Google Play Madness in the Method. Oh, that was absolutely hilarious. And I have a feeling a little bit closer to the truth than most of the people involved would have you believe. That's pretty much all I have for this week. Oh, before I go, I did want to mention that I have started streaming on Twitch. I will make sure in the next episode to get you guys that information. And I'm going to try and make sure to set up a page on the website specifically for the Twitch streaming. And if all goes well, by the end of this season, starting with season 4 of Hazardous Verbal Waste, what I will be doing is live streaming each episode so that you guys can see my process and you guys can actually hear all the times that I've screwed up a segment and had to re-record it. Trust me, last week's episode, there was a couple segments that had to be re-recorded multiple times. But I digress. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to talking to you guys next week. Anyway, this is Share-chan signing off. Peace.